What's going on, guys? So today's video is going to be interesting, especially for those of you who have considered adding solar to your RV. Now, this isn't specifically about upgrading an existing solar setup. This is for the millions of people out there who never got solar on their RV in the first place. Perhaps if you bought your RV 5 to 6 plus years ago, manufacturers weren't really including solar packages as part of the RVs. Sometimes you had some basic prep. For most folks who have recently bought their RVs, the manufacturers have definitely taken a much more proactive approach at putting solar prep or solar on RVs from the factory, which is cool. But again, this video is going to be primarily to talk about those of you like Paul who has a
1996 Starcraft.
Yep, it's a pop-up. Super compact, doesn't have trailer brakes because it's too compact for the need for trailer brakes. And he wants solar. So again, for folks like Paul who want to add it to an existing RV, or folks that maybe are considering just getting a system that's basic, affordable, and capable of doing things for them. We're going to talk about all of that in this video. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so Paul, first and foremost, if you add solar to your pop-up, what would the purpose of that be? What would you like to do with that solar?
Oh, I'd love to be able to go out and boondock, to have the ability to go anywhere I want and maintain some sort of power, or have the luxury of it. Right now, I'm limited to hooking it up at parks.
Okay, so when you are, let's say, boondocking out in the middle of nowhere, what are the top things you would like to have enough power to be able to power?
Number one, my AC.
Okay.
Number two, my refrigerator, in case I want to put a 6-pack of soda in there or something.
Does your refrigerator only operate off electricity, or does it have propane capability as well?
It's just electricity.
Okay. Keep going.
And then the ability to charge something, or maybe plug a laptop in.
Turn lights on, stuff like that. Maybe
Lights.
bring a TV or something you can plug in.
Correct.
Things like that. Okay, so expectation setting around solar is more critical than anything, because there's a lot of folks, because they see two relatively large solar panels, they see a battery, an inverter, and all that, they automatically assume I can power whatever I want to power. But you always have to remember, solar is less about the amount of power you have on the roof, and it's more about how much capacity you're able to constantly keep recharged. Okay. So when you think of solar panels, you know, a combination of these two panels, which is 195 watts each or 390 watts combined, which the chance of you getting that 390 watts, you know, consistently throughout the day is very, very slim. Actually getting 390 watts period, based on the fact that as they get dirty, as cloud coverage, the angle of the sun, all of that stuff impacts the performance of solar panels.
That's pretty much the ideal conditions for what this is rated for. Under
ideal conditions, you will probably get close to that 390 watts. Ideal conditions is the sun directly overhead hitting the panels very clean, no cloud coverage, you know, all of that stuff, because it all factors into the absorption that these monocrystalline panels will be able to actually pull from the sunlight. So that is going to be super important, because the entire process of powering stuff off of solar is what can you power off of the panels alone. If you don't have a battery, per se, there's no battery mixed into the equation, and you're getting 390 watts worth of power coming in, well, your air conditioning unit, even a small one's probably going to pull 700 to 1,000 watts.
Yes.
Which means you'll never have the consistency to be able to power that. On top of that, because the panels, again, depending on cloud coverage, if a moth lands on them, any of that stuff can affect the performance of a solar panel, then that power is going to constantly be fluctuating. So the entire point of solar within an RV environment is to maintain a battery. Whether it's going to be the battery that comes with most RVs, whether it's going to be a battery you add to it like this lithium iron phosphate battery, whether it's going to be a series of batteries that you have for a battery bank. But the entire goal of solar in the RV world is not specifically to power one thing or a few things. It's to power a battery, to recharge that battery so you have capacity. The battery capacity is going to determine what you can actually run, because the battery is going to provide far more stable output in terms of voltage and wattage. So if you have like an air conditioning unit, and let's just say again it's running 1,000 watts, well, now you can determine what 320 amp hours is in terms of wattage usage, and how long you'd be able to run an air conditioning unit off of a battery like this. Because there's no way you'd be able to run an air conditioning unit off of just pure solar again, because you'd have all sorts of things that play into that. What does the voltage look like? What does the wattage look like? And even if you were kind of able to manage some of that, it would be a very, very inefficient use of solar, and you would, quite frankly, probably damage your air conditioning system. But what we have in front of us here is actually a kit that eTrailer sells, and it's a very affordable kit. Under $600 gets you 2 panels, your cabling, your PWM solar charge controller, your mounting brackets for the solar panels, as well as your connectors. I generally recommend, if you're going to be adding solar, get a shunt for your battery, and that's going to monitor state of charge of your battery, power going in, charging it, and power leaving whenever you're using it, and then possibly an inverter. The one right here is absolutely awesome. It's made by WIFCO or WFCO, and that's a smart inverter. Not smart in the sense that you can connect to it via Bluetooth, but smart in the sense that whenever you are on shore power, it's passing the power through to all of your outlets, to your refrigerator if it plugs into a normal wall outlet, to your air conditioning unit. But then whenever you remove shore power and you're on batteries, this actually inverts power from your battery to be able to power all of those things as well, up to 2,000 watts.
Well, that is nice.
Yeah, so if you have a really high efficiency or small air conditioning unit, this may be more than enough to be able to power that, like some of the newer inverter-based RV ACs that ramp up very slowly in terms of power. Something like this may actually be able to work, especially in a small pop-up trailer, because your AC units tend to be pretty small as well.
So minus the battery shunt, you can get all of this kit that you just pointed out for around $550 from eTrailer?
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
And that price, which is cool, has kind of been steadily going down over the years as technology's improved. When I say over the years, like over the last year, it's gone down. Again, because the cost of solar panels have gone down, the cost of solar charge controllers, things like that have gone down. But it is a very, very practical kit to put on most RVs as an aftermarket setup, where you're not looking for something huge. You're not looking to put 10 panels on the roof. You're not looking to power everything inside of a big fifth wheel off of solar and batteries, right? This is a great setup for folks like yourself who want to be able to do some basic things within reason, and also understanding that it's all about capacity of the battery, because this is what's going to be feeding your equipment. The solar panels are just going to be recharging the battery system. So in your RV, the amount of time you can actually power your AC is going to be determined by the battery as well as the inverter, because the inverter is going to connect to the battery, and the inverter is going to take battery 12 volt power and convert it to 110 or 120 volt to be able to power your traditional air conditioning unit, because most ACs on RVs are 120 volt. They're not 12 volt. So what you then have to do is determine the math of how much current your ACs are drawing, if the inverter can even power them at that point, or power your AC at that point, and how much and how quickly it's going to deplete your battery, and then how quickly your solar panels are going to replenish your battery. So if we looked at this from a build out perspective, how it would look, your solar panels would be mounted using the brackets on top of the roof of your RV. The cabling would then connect them to your solar charge controller, which this is an okay solar charge controller, but it is certainly not one that I would say if you want a really, really efficient system, you should get. It's a great startup system. It's great to give you pretty much everything you need to get your solar package going if you already have a battery, if you already have an inverter. But again, I would definitely recommend moving to an MPPT solar charge controller.
Okay.
So the difference there is that when solar power comes into a PWM solar charge controller like this one, it's basically taking that power and it's converting it into charging power for your battery. So in that 13.6 to 14.6 volt range. And then it's smart enough to know that my battery's full. Let's put it in a float stage. Let's, not overcharge the battery. It prevents you from damaging your battery. An MPPT solar charger controller does things differently. So solar panels don't necessarily pump 13.6 to 14.6 volts into a solar charge controller or a battery. Especially when you're running panels in series, your voltage is going to essentially be doubling every time you add a panel. That now has to go into a solar charge controller, which has to convert that voltage to the correct voltage for your typical RV battery, which is very typically the same voltage as like an automotive battery. Super, super critical that you keep an eye on that. Also, if you run your panels in parallel, which is negative to negative, positive to positive, and you feed that directly into a battery, it's going to overcharge the battery. At some point, the battery is going to be full, and then it will start overcharging the battery. So a charge controller also manages that. It plays traffic cop. It's basically This is the amount of power that needs to go into the battery, and I'm going to make sure stuff that's connected to it is properly feeding that amount of power into it, regardless of what's coming into the charge controller. Now, this is a 30 amp solar charge controller, and the most that this will pump out and feed into a battery is up to 30 amps. So what you have to be really, really cautious is to make sure that you right size all of your equipment. And if you're going to be adding more solar, you go to a solar charge controller that can handle that. Now, that's also typically going to mean increasing wire size. The good thing about going in series is your wire size doesn't have to get as large because your voltage is going to increase, which allows you to use a lighter gauge wire.
Very nice.
When you go in parallel, you're increasing your amperage or your wattage. And when that happens, you have to go to a larger wire to be able to support that increased wattage that's actually going to be going into your solar charge controller.
Less resistance.
Exactly. So when we talk about a solar charge controller, the reason why PWM is kind of your more entry-level basic, even though it's still a heck of a value with this specific package, is because it does the bare minimum to make sure that the solar power coming in is converted to the correct voltage, and it's monitoring the battery to make sure it's not overcharging the battery, right? So that's good. The reason why you might want to consider upgrading to an MPPT solar charge controller, which significantly raises the price of your solar charge controller, they're a lot more expensive, is because what it does is it converts all of that excessive voltage into actually amperage. So if you think about it, let's say we have these panels and they're ran in series and we've spiked up to 90 volts. Well, it's going to take the excessive voltage over the voltage that would normally be applied to the battery. It's going to convert that into amperage, and it's going to be much more efficient when charging your battery system.
So if I get this right, it seems like it's pretty efficient and it's using up pretty much everything, even excess power that's produced.
Correct. Correct. It's the most efficient way to be able to charge a bank of batteries or an individual battery. And again, MPPT solar charger controllers typically are going to have technology baked into them that can do other things. Like you can get smart versions of them as well, so you can have the ability to monitor it via Bluetooth or over Wi-Fi. They give you a lot more flexibility whenever you're willing to spend more and get a fancier unit. With PWM models, typically you're not going to have a lot of really fancy features added to them because I know a lot of people use this as a stepping stone to get to an MPPT. What's cool though is if you have an RV that comes with a PWM solar charge controller, it's typically wired exactly the same as an MPPT solar charge controller. So swapping them out is usually just swapping the wires over. And when I say the wires, in most cases it's 4 wires. You have your solar panels coming in, and then you have 2 wires going out to your battery. And in some cases, they're going to include 2 more wires that you can connect to something that is purely being driven off of solar. So maybe you have some lights or you have something that you need 12 volts. This is going to create that 12 volt for you to be able to power lights and stuff like that directly off of solar without actually using the battery. But in that case, you want to be sure that it's a sunny enough day that it'll actually provide you the power you're looking for.
So I noticed, obviously with these panels, you would have to mount it on the roof. And I know RVers, one of the things you don't want is a leaking roof. I mean, what is the preventative measure that you would use to install these?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. A lot of folks are really hesitant about mounting solar on the roof because you're mounting it to the roof. So the brackets that come with these solar panels are pretty cool because they actually have this piece of butyl tape on them right there.
Okay.
And then these 2 holes would be what actually mount to the roof, and right here mount to the side rails of your panel. So one box, which has 4 brackets, is for 1 solar panel. You essentially put 1 bracket on each corner like this. Okay. And then these screw into the roof. So it's always best to pre-drill your holes, but always understand that you're pre-drilling a smaller hole than the screw that's going into it. Believe it or not, some people make that mistake. You peel this backer off. It's a rubberized butyl tape that's going to seal. And then you're going to put the screws in from the top, and then you're going to smother this whole thing with a lap sealant. And that lap sealant is going to be essentially to create this goop that will dry and seal everything on top. Some people, when they drill the hole, they'll go ahead and put some lap sealant underneath it as well, so between the bracket and the roof. And
is that stuff that looks like plumber's putty almost?
It does, but it comes out of like a caulking gun. Okay. And it comes out like caulk. And then when it goes down, it flattens itself out and creates this kind of like a hard rubber. It's not really hard. It's actually something you can always kind of press into, but it's a very, very good sealing material. And that's also the stuff that when you run your wires across the top of the RV, you're typically going to use that as well to hold the wires down and to be able to create the means by which stuff's not moving around, and you're also using it to seal all of the gaps. It's something that's used on pretty much all RVs today, even from the factory. That's how they seal up your front cap, your roof lines, everything around your vents, around your AC sometimes. All of that stuff is usually sealed up with lap sealant.
Good to know. And as a recap, I was looking at this. Could you go over what these are?
So this is one heck of a battery, and it's one of my favorite batteries from the folks over at Lifetime. 320 amp hours in a very small form factor that has Bluetooth connectivity built into it, so you can monitor things like state of charge, how much power is going out or going into it when you're charging it or using it, all from one battery. That is a really, really cool setup. But more importantly, for the size of this battery, it's 320 amp hours of lithium iron phosphate power. What that essentially means is it's the equivalent to about 6 deep cycle standard lead acid batteries. So most people don't know that when a standard battery that comes with your RV reaches about half charge, the voltage will start to drop. And as that voltage starts to drop, it can damage things within your RV. Things can malfunction. Leveling gear may not work properly. TVs, other things like that can start malfunctioning if you're trying to feed an inverter and stuff, because as voltage drops, it's going to affect everything plugged into that voltage. Whenever you're using lithium, and the big perk, of course, to why people like lithium is the fact that they can take a lot more charging recycles, and they can typically go to near 1% of charge and still maintain full voltage.
That's awesome.
So it's almost like an off switch once they die. It's like it just loses power, everything shuts off. Because again, lithium batteries do such a good job using their battery management system on board, their BMS, to maintain the proper amount of voltage all the way till the point they're completely dead. And that's one of the reasons people switch. But again, when you look at the density, the power density you get in a relatively small form factor, that's about the size of a standard 100 amp hour, lead acid battery you're going to get. It's going to weigh about the same amount, actually a little less, but it's going to be the equivalent of like 6 lead acid batteries. Really,
it wasn't
really cool.
terribly heavy. I mean, yeah, it's got some weight to it, but for that power, not bad at all.
Yeah, it feels like an automotive battery that you typically see. And then next to it, again, is this WIFCO Smart inverter. This thing is super cool. And again, just having the capability of it automatically switching over from 12 volt to power 110, 120 volt outlets in your RV is pretty dang phenomenal. And the cool thing about WFCO that a lot of inverters, especially if you're shopping on Amazon and other places, it's UL listed. So Underwriters Laboratory listed, which means that it has gone through independent lab testing to ensure that it's safe to use in an RV environment. It's not going to spontaneously catch on fire. They've done the testing and spent the money on that testing to give you the safest possible product, which is really, really cool. So as we wrap the video up, again, eTrailer carries all sorts of kind of pre-designed packages for different types of wattages, but this is a very common setup. 390 watts, 2 panels, solar charge controller, cabling, mounting brackets, and connectors. It's a great way to get into solar, and it's definitely a great way to be able to add power to be able to do things like charge a battery so you can perhaps use your AC for a while, run a dehumidifier inside of your RV to try to reduce mold and all the stuff that builds up. And the humidity problems in RVs are probably the #1 reason why RVs fail prematurely. It rusts out nails, it causes wood to absorb it, they separate. Again, nails and screws start to rust, mildew builds up, adhesives start to release, all sorts of problems happen. And that's in addition to all the health-related concerns that you're going to have with mold and mildew. Any final questions?
No, I was just going to say it's a major leg up just to even have power for this pop-up. So I might be looking into that.
Well, very cool. And again, this will be installed on a Class A diesel pusher soon. And we'll do a full installation video, or at least show you what it looked like when everything gets installed, because depending on how hot it is, don't know if anybody wants to be on an RV right now. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel. I'll throw a link in the description of this video to some of these products. If you are interested, give us a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.